Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to episode number 6 of the Mary and Sam Show. Today we're going to be talking about a great subject that's near and dear to my heart. It's actually sex and why it's so taboo. Oftentimes people, I remember early on in my childhood when I started becoming, hitting puberty, and my grandmother, I was telling her, hey, I have every morning, we have something going on here, and she said, go take a cold shower. so that's what I was told when I was a kid, and I didn't know how babies came or anything like that. One of the other things I used to think about was that when you got married, whenever you put the ring on your finger, that's how people would get
Pregnant.
So, anyways, it's a little bit of background about what you're taught as a kid, especially coming from Afghanistan. Nobody ever teaches you anything. You kind of just run and stumble on things on your own. So, Mary, tell us about what your thoughts are.
Yeah. By the way, your voice is very sexy. You're sick, so you sound different.
That's right. You've got the deep voice.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Today's subject is a sensitive subject because with a lot of people amongst parents, it's not talked about a lot because, again, sexuality is such a taboo in a lot of cultures, not in our culture because, we were brought up in Afghanistan. But I think across the board with a lot of cultures, it's such a taboo that it's not talked about often. I think they teach at the public schools in America about sexuality and educate children, kids, teenagers. But in most cultures, it's not talked about. It's a very sensitive subject. And what I would like to question and challenge your thinking, why is it? Why in most culture and religious beliefs, sexuality is such a taboo? Why is it talked about in a negative way? Why don't they teach about sexuality from a positive perspective? Because, first of all, why does it exist?
Yeah.
Right? Why it's there? It's an innate need. Most people think sexuality is a desire, but it's a need. It's our human primal need. Just when we need food, we need air, we need shelter, we also need love and sex.
Yeah, that's very important.
And going back, making references to psychologist Abraham Maslow, he talks about the hierarchy of human needs, and sexuality is part of it as a primal need. Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs. Love and connection, that goes back to sexuality, is part of a human need. It's a driving force that motivates people. Like think about it. When somebody gets married, you go on your honeymoon. How do you feel the next day?
Probably feel pretty good.
Right. You feel pretty energized. It motivates you. And when you look at some people that they are, the love and sex part is dead in their life because you could see it in their physiology.
Oh my God, I have a good example of this. Yesterday, we went to San Francisco to get a passport for my son, and we were just sitting there, Mary and I, looking at the people. It kind of looks like the DMV, but it's a little bit nicer. Anyways, you can tell the people sitting behind the little windows, you can see the joy in some of their faces and the absolute disgust in the other ones' faces. And I had my own hypothesis as to why that was happening, but I could tell who was getting more love in their life, if you know what I mean, by just looking at their faces.
Yes.
Because I think one of the other things that people don't talk about is actually with sex is that, studies show that it lowers your blood pressure, elevates your mood for men and women. So women have more estrogen, which is better for them, and for men, their testosterone levels go higher, which actually leads to more drive and more need for success. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of benefits to it. However, like we were talking about it earlier, there's always this, like, there's something wrong with you if you're having sex, and that's we need to get the word out that that's not the issue. Like you're saying.
And think about it for a second, why there's a negative connotation attached to it, because people do abuse this energy. People do break families when it's abused, when it's being obsessively used.
Right.
And the reason all religious beliefs that, they want to prevent and control this energy is because humans throughout history have abused this energy. And why is it that people abuse this energy is when you want to really control that energy, when it's not being released, the more you control something, the more it wants to get out. It's like a river. A river may be dammed and its water controlled for a time, but eventually it will leak out, source an outlet to force out. So whether you're controlling somebody, if it's your spouse or children, not to release or talk about this energy, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it without you knowing. When you're not watching, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it secretly. But that defeats the whole purpose, because you're feeling like a thief. You're doing these things because it's still a need. It's an energy that has to get released. So you're doing it in an unhealthy way that is not going to serve you well as an individual, as a human being in your life.
Right.
And because of those controlled energies that it's not released, it actually makes you make the wrong decision in your relationship later in life, because you don't have experiences, you didn't release that energy, you don't know yourself. So you're going to get into a situation that you make a decision based on just feeling forced into it versus based on, this is what I want. I want to share something from my past. When I was a teenager, I grew up in Afghanistan, and obviously this subject is never talked about. It's like a no-no. It's a bad thing. You're not supposed to talk about it, do it, or even, it's like when you do something in Afghanistan, you're not supposed to even like it. You're supposed to hate it. And they stone you in Afghanistan if they see man and woman together. So that's how primitive their thinking is. But anyways, I remember when I was, I think, 15 in Afghanistan. When you're a teenager, every day you're falling in love with a neighbor or somebody that you look at, And so there was this neighbor, and he liked me, and obviously I liked him back. And then every time we lived in an apartment building, and, we didn't have a lot of, we were poor pretty much, and so we converted our balcony into a bedroom. My sister and I used to use that as a bedroom. So it had a big window. It was on the first floor. So before I would go to sleep, I would sit next to the window, and I loved to people watch. And this guy would pass through my window every night, and I would just play, like look at him and kind of, give him a clue that, yeah, I like you too. Well, one night he passes by, and then he comes towards me, and like my heart like drops. And then he goes, he wants to talk to me. So I talk to him. And then we're talking. This is like 2-3 minutes of talking.
Right.
And my sister walks in.
Yeah.
So my oldest sister, she's 3 years older than me. And imagine what happened to me. Like first of all, I got caught talking to somebody that I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
She gets very upset, very mad. And she's doing her sisterly duties, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I felt so horrible about talking to this guy that night, and I was afraid that she was going to go tell my parents. She didn't tell my parents, luckily, but I felt so horrible that I've done something so bad. I go find from my mom's medicine cabinet, I find whatever that I can find, a bottle of medicine, and I take it all down. Because I wanted to commit suicide, because I felt so horrible about what I had done. And all I did was talking to somebody. I didn't even have anything else. It was just talking to somebody. So that could have been a disaster. I could have dropped dead. Thank God I didn't. The whole night I threw up, and they took me to the hospital. But imagine that, when you feel so bad about you've done something wrong and you want to commit suicide. I mean, think about that how they program you.
They did such a good job of programming you to think that it's such a horrible thing, that the fact that you even just talked to somebody, that this was so bad that you had to kill yourself.
Exactly. So then no wonder, we grew up as adults and we can't find true love, because sexuality is the bottom line is what? Is for procreation, is for to have children. That's why God has made it. And
Right.
it's connected to love. It has nothing to do with anything else except love. And if love is so wrong, then look around you. Look your children. Look at your parents. This is because of love. We're here because of love.
Right.
So we want to give this message to the world that it's time to embrace this energy and look at the positive aspect of it and talk to your children, talk between the couples. You know, if you're not having any sexual relationship with your partner, that also shows
Oh yeah.
on the outside, on the
Totally.
energy, on people's faces.
Absolutely. You can be. I mean, some of the signs are just moodiness, right? Upset, getting upset over small things.
Crankiness.
So there's a lot going on. I mean, I know sometimes they make these jokes about it, right? You see these people on TV where they have, usually, unfortunately, it's usually a woman where they show, and she has a whole bunch of cats, right? And she's upset that the whole world, everything is not going her way, because she's not, she has nobody in her life.
Yeah.
And that energy gets bottled up. You can try to force it and say it doesn't exist. I'm gonna contain this thing, but I guarantee you it's showing up somewhere in your world. Somebody's not gonna be happy.
Yeah, exactly. And especially talking to your children, because I don't want to be, passing on the vicious cycle of if my parents didn't talk to me about sexuality, and I don't want to pass that on to my kids. Our son is 15 years old, and we openly talk to him very much about the meaning of love, the meaning of, what does it mean to have sex? When you really truly explain it to them, help them understand it, they're not going to go abuse that.
Right.
It's just educating them. But first, obviously, you have to educate yourself.
Absolutely.
And a great, great book that I can recommend that absolutely changed my life, and I know you've read it a long time ago, is Think and Grow Rich. There's a section that Napoleon Hill talks about sexuality and how much that energy is so great and motivates people. If you could also channel that energy at work, you could be so much more successful.
Absolutely. Most of the most successful people in the world have a very, very healthy sex drive, or if you want to call it love energy.
Yes.
These people tend to be more charismatic, more appealing to the masses.
Yes.
And so therefore those people tend to get more attention in this world.
And in the book Think and Grow Rich, also Napoleon Hill, he did a 29 years of research study with more than 500 successful people. That's how he wrote the book, is that most people that do have sexual energy, that also brings creativity. It's linked to, which I thought that was very phenomenal, research, that it links to creativity, that creativity could help at work so much.
Right.
Right?
Think about it this way too. Isn't it always like that the artists that are some of the greatest artists, they were all in love?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Every great creativity has come from it's from artists, musicians, because they all have that sexual energy. It's about love,
Right.
and love could be towards not just human beings, towards animals, towards art, towards music. So that's creativity.
Yeah, great. Well, until next time, this is the Sam and Mary Show, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, and next week's show is going to be surprise. So that's the last episode. We're going to talk about relationship, and after that, we're going to talk about mindset. Thank you so much for all of your support, comments, and please share this video if you think someone could benefit. And please think about how sexuality and love could help you in your life if you openly talked about it without fear and judgment.
Right. And then go to Mary at marynowabi.com to see more videos. Also, you can email Mary at marys@marynowabi.com.
Absolutely. Till next
right.
time.
Thank you.